Welcome on PMP examination tips and trick. So I'm Chandra MR. You can call me CMR or Chandra. I'm a certified PMP Prince 2 practitioner, Prince 2 Agile practitioner, ITL V3 expert, ITL 4 managing professional, COVID 5 and DevOps. Now, when I say PMP, obviously we should know that this particular certification is offered by PMI, and it is based on the PMBOK guide what PMI has released updates regularly. Firstly, we'll understand a brief understanding on what is a project, which we should know. Whenever we take up a project, we should be aware of that, because a lot of dynamics differences happens, project versus other things, what happens in the organization. So since people may not understand it thoroughly, they may not have clarity on what exactly the difference between what is happening in the organization versus project. Many people end up in transactions which doesn't help project as well as the business. And whenever someone takes up a project and become a project manager, so what that person should be looking at to do a project management better. So that we will discuss as part of project management. And if you follow a best practice which is related to project management, what is that we are going to gain? So just like that, I'm a project manager, I'm managing the project. Can I not do like that? As I understand, as my seniors told, as my colleagues told, based on my experience, can I do? Answer is yes, but you cannot become successful 100%. So whatever you think, whatever your colleagues said, the senior professional told, that will become project management for you. What you see, you just consume it. So you just start following those. So better to understand what is the best practice from the experts like PMI, where you understand what it takes to become a project manager and what is that effort involved in that. And what are the considerations you should make while doing the project management. Then we look at project management phases, it is written, which is basically a process group I'm speaking about. So in PMP, the framework defines various process groups. We'll understand that along with the knowledge areas and processes. So now project management methodologies, we will look at a few project management methodologies approach using this framework. So what are the ways project can be done using the project management framework? And then next we'll discuss about dynamics associated with the PMP examination. What is that we need to look at when it comes to PMP examination? Then what are the challenges? Or what should be your focus to pass the PMP examination? We can look at that. Then also various different skills required for a project manager, which is essential to become a project manager who can able to contribute towards the project successfully, the project success. So many a times there are a lot of confusion between various different skills as an individual we will have, not being in a management role versus being in a management role. So those things we may require to understand correctly so that our application of those skills and capabilities will be accordingly to suit that requirement. Otherwise, there will be challenge in terms of handling it better. So let us move towards what is project, the first chapter. So now many people understand project and using this terminology project for everything what they do. So I have come across a scenario where if I ask, so since I come from IT industry predominantly, I'll just take that example. But project management doesn't apply only to IT industry. Remember that. So since I am from IT industry, I've seen this happening. I'm just telling you. If I ask someone, what are you doing? So they say I'm working for so-and-so project. For example, someone says I work for Microsoft project. So what do you do in that project? They say we do Office 365 support. So basically what the person meant to us, if many customers uses Office 365, if they find any trouble in using Office 365, customer will call and these people will attend that call. So it's not a project actually, it's an operation. So day in, day out activities which is being done by them to ensure customers are supported and help to handle their product better, which is not a project. So then what is project? So by definition, we can see project as a fixed timeline with a defined start and end points. So there is a start time, there is an end time. So which means project is temporary in nature. So project will have a specific start date, specific end date. So when project starts and project gets initiated, it's quite obvious. the project manager and team clearly knows what is that they're going to accomplish at the end of the project. So project comes up with a specific result may be a product or service or any result itself. Now this is the difference what we need to understand. When I say product, it is easy to visualize. If I say laptop as a product, mobile as a product, it is easy to visualize because it is physically seen. For example, Microsoft PowerPoint presentation, that is also a product, an application. So we see that, we use it. So easy to narrate about it, easy to describe that. Similarly, the service will also come as an output. So now it has become a bit difficult for many people to explain what is that service coming out coming as an output of a project. So since when you look at a product as an output, you see certain features, functionality working for you to do something. Similarly, for a service capability has to be built for service to run. So building that capability and that capability coming as a result of that particular project can be called as a service, which is an output of a project. So result, a specific result coming as an output of a project, this can be like some improvement initiatives, what we take up. Like you come across through a training, maybe 10 days training on certain topic, and you have a learning in the training. So this learning is the result of that particular project, which you will have, which is not a product, which is not a service. So likewise, many such things which happens like improving the performance of something, enhancing the customer experiences, many such projects, or increasing the sales, many such projects which organization takes up, which is not a product, which is not a service, which comes out as a output of that project, just a result. So all these three, a project manager should be able to understand and explain. If project manager fails to visualize it, then ultimately project will suffer and deliverables would not happen. But that needs to be remembered. Project is temporary. It has a specific start date. It has a specific end date, and project needs to be completed with that agreed before that agreed end date, and to be delivered accordingly. So now, project needs resources. So now, resources which you acquire, these resources may require to be released after the project, released back to the respective, if it is human resources, released back to the respective functions in the organization from where that resources come. Technology resources, if I speak about, if you acquire certain technology resources temporarily, you may require to hand it over back once the project is completed. Maybe, for example, in our organization, for allocation of certain tasks in the project, we have asked certain access to an application in the organization. Now that access is revoked, as an example. Now, being in a specific project for the human resources, certain privileges would have been given. Being in this project, this person can have an access to this, can able to do various different things. Let me assume a scenario where movement of an employee, a project, whoever is working in that project in the organization. Now, this person cannot enter this zone. But the moment the person is assigned to that particular project, since the project activity happens in that area, okay, for this area, this person can come in and do the project activities. So such things are revoked as the project is complete. So resources are taken back as the project completes. Certain specific access would be given, specific privileges would be given whenever the project takes. So these resources may have certain constraints where you may not get sufficient number of resources, sufficient amount of quantity, if I can say, may not be available. So this will become one of the constraints, main constraints, which need to be looked at carefully. So similarly, project requires a lot of tools, a lot of techniques are used. So one needs to be very thorough with these techniques and know how to use these tools so that managing the project will become smoother. So many times these techniques and tools helps us in terms of defining, like for example, scope, defining the scope or estimation of the cost, identification of the criteria, various different criteria like quality criteria, acceptance criteria, and also based on the defined plan, defined project management plan, the design, you may require to review the performance while executing, while monitoring. A lot of tools are used. Those needs to be known to the project manager as well as the team who is working along with it. Maybe that education needs to be provided to those individuals who are working. So then the project needs a diverse team structuring across departments and functions. That's what initially I said when I was speaking about team is actually created or formed by having an assignment from various different functions in the organization. Maybe you recruit people from elsewhere. As the project completes, what will you do with them? So project get dismantled, disseminated. So these needs to be very clear. So if that is not clear, it is very difficult for organization per se, whether should we keep these resources or just take them away from the organization. So that's where many scenarios where in many organizations where people are working in the project, the moment project gets completed, they comes to bench and they don't know where to go. They will run around to see if any other project is available. For the capability what they have, there may not be a project, there may be a project in a different capability. So learning, grooming people to learn by providing the insights, what kind of projects are coming in the organization is definitely one of the roles project manager has to do. It is not expected in project perspective, but resource perspective to motivate them. This might be one of the approach will help project manager. So timeline, resources, tools, and team, which are the four things which we are touching upon. But this only these four things are not focused when we do project management. It is beyond this. Like we speak about scope, we speak about a schedule, that timeline what we're speaking about, and then cost which is not mentioned here, resources, risk, quality, communication is very important thing when you do the project, and similarly stakeholder engagement and managing them. So then why would any project starts? There should be a trigger point. Now organization takes up a project for a reason. So why did you take up any specific program? You have some reason. Why would you invest your time, energy, and money? You have some reason. Similarly, organization will also have certain requirements to be fulfilled, and they would take up. So what could be the reasons? So the demand in the market has increased for my products. So I need to produce more. I may require to optimize based on the demand. I may require to respond to them quickly and convert that opportunity, take that opportunity of fulfilling the demand and have more revenue. So project starts to enhance, to take the advantage of that. Then strategic opportunities. Now, if I take an example, so you have a customer where end-to-end deliveries you do services as well as projects to them. Now, with that strategic engagement, you find customer is actually going with some new initiative for their business. You will learn about it. Now you learn about it, and assuming you don't have such projects or services you do, you are required to build the capability quickly so that you don't allow that business to go somewhere else. So that you have a strategic approach to retain that customer so that that organization doesn't go to any other alternative who can do it, which you don't do. So that is also certain initiative organization takes to retain that customers and grow. So you take up the projects that way also. Then customer comes to you and says, I want this requirement to be fulfilled. So you initiate a project. Then technology advancements. Now today, if I speak about cloud services, majority of the organizations are going for it. Earlier, if I say 10, 12 years back, if I speak about cloud technology, they were skeptical. The more inclined towards the physical infrastructure, and then they wanted it. The moment increase in terms of usage of cloud services started, people started not having their own data centers, they moved to the cloud. Today, majority of the startups, and this also enabled to have more startups in the industry, right? So organizations started having their own new technology embraced, that which brought in more flexible to them. So as technology changes, organization has to change. Organization has to adopt to it. So many organizations did not live in the competition because they were not sensitive about the technology advancements. So if I speak about a certain organization, like I don't mention the name of the organization, you can assume like mobile phone. So this organization, one of the top brands who had acquired the market for their mobile handsets, but today they are not because they were not sensitive about the smartphones which emerged in the market. They delayed to take up that part of it, so they are behind the competition. So in no time they are behind. They were first, now they are the last kind of. So in terms of fulfillment to the customers, consumers, similarly enabling myself with the latest technology, all these are very essential for me to sustain and grow. So organization takes up the project. And legal requirements, for example, online marketing websites, if you look at, they need to have a payment gateway. Now, payment gateway has a specific requirement, like PCI DSS compliance. Now, only then it is allowed to have that payment gateway used. Otherwise, I think legal perspective, it is not allowed. So such things also initiate a project to improve the compliance. An organization initiates a project, and they would not have any choice when it comes to compliance requirement. So projects definitely, as you mentioned, will have a end. So when will you complete the project? Declare project is complete and over. So project objectives are fulfilled. We achieved all the results of the project as we planned. So that is one possibility, that you would declare that project is complete. Second thing, project may not achieve the objectives for some reasons. In between, project stops. An organization takes the call that let us not continue with this project. So we have invested, but as the project progresses, you may find something better than this exists. We may stop. There may not be any fund flow at the moment. There may be disaster like Corona pandemic, what has happened. So that would have slowed down the things. So they may say, no, let us stop this project. Once everything gets resolved, we can continue. Temporarily, they can stop the project that falls. But however project ends, whether objectives are accomplished or temporarily stop or just stop because of certain reasons, the formality of closing the project formally has to happen without fail, irrespective of why the project complete, why the project completion is declared. All the actions which needs to be taken to formally complete the project, declare project is complete, has to be done without fail. Right, so that's about closing the project. And then little bit of confusion in the people's mind, as I mentioned earlier, between projects and operations. So these bullet points would help you in terms of understanding the differences. So projects are temporary endeavor, as I mentioned earlier, start date, specific end date it will have. So project have a definite start and end. Tasks are unique to a project. When we say tasks are unique, within the project, it may repeat, right? So output are very unique. Purpose is to achieve a unique goal. So now when it comes to operations, it is a routine activity which we do to upkeep. Objective of operation is to monitor, manage, and ensure something is at the level where it is fulfilling the requirement always. So it's an ongoing activity, so repetitive in nature, and this is the purpose is to sustain and move forward. That's where you do this incident management. So something fails, you bring back to the normal working condition. So if you visualize any life cycle of a product or a service, somewhere that get conceptualized. And after conceptualization, you have a design for that concept. A lot of discussion happens, designing happen. Then further, if everything is okay, you will trigger a project to create that product or service. Once product is created or a service is created and released and user starts using it, that's when initially the requirements, whatever is mentioned, are realized. While project is happening, users don't realize. While designing is happening, users don't see that. Only when it becomes operational and available to use, users start using it and they see how the requirement is fulfilled as we told earlier or not. So now this has to be maintained at a specific level so that particular product and services are performing at certain level so that it keeps continuous fulfilling the requirements. So to ensure this, operation does regular activities of monitoring, checking various parameters of performance. If there is any deviation in the performance, correction of that. So that's where you see that activity is repetitive in nature. So objective is to ensure the product or service is up and running as intended and users experience is uniform. There is no variation, degradation, failure. If at all any degradation or failure, quickly resolve it so that user can continue using it. That's what the focus of operation. And it does not have any specific end until product and services ends. Operation doesn't end. But project, you create a product or service. You enhance a feature or function of a product or service. You retire, you take off that particular product or service from the production. So for all of this, you need a project. So initiate a project, accomplish the objective, and you step back. That's how it continues, project or operations. So these differences, please keep in mind. So never say that whenever you're doing some operations roles, or I work for so-and-so project. It's a wrong terminology to use, and that gives a wrong impression. Someone who understands the difference, for them it gives very wrong impression. All right. So now we will move to the next chapter, that is project management. So till now we understood this project and a little bit details about the dynamics associated around project. We went through that. Now for success of the project, obviously project management has its role. So what happens in the project management? Let us see and what it is. So project management is all about application of process, methods, knowledge, skills and experiences to achieve objectives of a unique project. So that is called project management. So now objective we have, activities we have, deliverables we know. A project manager cannot do everything. So there is a setup which is made, organization, which means people, technology components, process, documentation, resources, technology resources as well as human resources, which you bring all of this together and you need to manage them in such a way that objectives of the project is achieved. That is project management. So this requires planning, this requires delegation, this requires monitoring the performance, this requires taking decisions, communications regularly, reporting, performance analysis, many things are involved. So in the absence of project management, if you visualize, can we do all of this to accomplish the objective? It may go out of control. You cannot track, you don't know what is happening on ground. It may go out of control. When you have a formal project management methodology applied there, obviously, you will have things, visibility into the things, what is happening on ground and insight towards it, so that you can able to manage them better. So it helps in properly carrying out all the processes involved in starting from the conception till the completion of the project, right? And formally it has to be completed the way it is planned. So it is very much required to have a great planning. That's why it says proper planning prevents poor project performance. Now today we're speaking about more and more agile. So even there, you cannot ignore on planning and execution. The way we speak, the framework PMP speaks about, this is still applicable to agile as well. And how is it applicable? Let us see when we go and discuss on various different methodologies or approaches while doing the project management. Right. So project perspective, when we speak about, so mainly three constraints are spoken, which called as triple constraint, that is time, cost, and scope. But later, I think in this slide it is not mentioned. Later, I think it was realized it is not about only time, cost, and scope. It is beyond this. So 6 constraints were identified. Along with these three, time, cost, and scope, quality, resource, and risk. These are the 3 more constraints which were added to the list of constraints. And why do we call this as constraints? If we are not sensitive about the constraint, it may become difficult for us to handle the project better. For example, if I have a specific scope to deliver and it has a specific sequence of schedule which I need to complete accordingly, and it has to be completed with so much of cost. Let me say I need to construct 10 feet of what is that, tower with a width of 5 feet, a round tower, diameter of 5 feet and a 10-meter height. Now, let me say this takes maybe 10 weeks to complete. I don't know, is it a 10 weeks is enough for completing 10 feet of tower? I'm just taking, for calculation purpose, I'm just taking 10, 10, 10. 10 feet, 5 feet width tower, which takes 10 weeks with, let me say, 10,000. 10,000 is very less, but calculation purpose, let it be like that. 10,000, whatever the currency it is. This is what it is. Now, if I want to complete 10 feet in 10 weeks, I can easily assume each week I should complete 1 week. That is the scope of deliverable, right? So scope of deliverable is 10 feet of tower, and each week I'm planning to complete 1 feet. So that by end of 10th week, I can complete 10 feet. So obviously if I say 10,000 currency it takes to construct, so I'm saying 1,000 currency for 1 feet. That's how much it should take. Now, by chance, if I complete this in a week, 1.5 feet, incurring 1,000 cost. Cost-wise, I'm doing great. Timeline versus I'm ahead of schedule. So these three constraints, if you watch out carefully like this, availability of this cost and visibility towards schedule and scope is very essential. Now, can I do this in the absence of resources? How will I measure if I don't have a quality perspective, measurements, specification understood? How will I measure the performance? So that is the reason that three more constraints added: quality, resources, and risk. So what are the risks involved in this particular thing? So that it will not stop as the project will happen as per the plan. So one needs to look at it carefully that way. So all the 6 constraints has to be monitored, checked regularly, so that project can go as per the plan and accomplish the results. So while we do this, communication plays very important role. If at all, if we need to have a procurement, you may require to do the procurement that needs to be handled, and involvement of the stakeholders in everything what we do. So engagement with them is very essential. Okay, advantages of project management. So when we follow a formal project management approach, so we would look at better efficiency. Obviously, it should be efficient and effective as well. Increase customer satisfaction because everything is visible to us since we are handling in a structured way. We are involving the stakeholder customer very closely and updating, regular review we are doing. And then enhanced efficacy, better teamwork. Resource management is one of the area, which means team also comes as part of it, which this framework is throwing light on it. Greater competitive advantage because we're doing in the best way, best practice approach. So obviously we should be able to get the results as we expect, and that would become our ability to showcase on, which is definitely a competitive edge. Service expansion because of this, and improves flexibility. So more visibility you have about anything what you are doing, more clarity about the journey what you're making. So if at all any changes happen, something coming and stopping you to move forward, it would become very easy for you to continue the journey by making necessary modifications quickly because you're well versed with it. That's where the flexibility comes into picture. So more able you are, more effective you will become. So more flexible you will become because you know how to progress further, how to handle it. Effective risk management. Yes, obviously, PMP framework throws lights on risk management and has a specific knowledge area for it. Better quantification means all that metrics, all that quantifications, what you do, you know that numbers, you know the clarity, so that you can progress further checking those. Improved quality. Yes, if you achieve the quality as per the plan, that itself is a great achievement. But however, the framework helps to make it in a better way, do it in a better way, right? So next is about project management process groups. Now, PMP as a framework, project management framework, has defined entire framework like project management process group, knowledge areas, and 49 processes. Now, these are organized with each other in certain way. So process group is main thing for us, which we need to look at first, and then knowledge areas, and how knowledge area and process groups are connected, and how these 49 processes are distributed between process groups and knowledge areas. Understanding this should become, which help any project manager to handle it better. So the moment if I say 49 processes, people will look at stars, 49 processes. Yes, it looks like that, but they are connected. The moment you understand the flow, it becomes easier to you, right? So 5 process groups are initiating process group, planning process group, executing process group, monitoring and control process group, closing process group. Okay, so many a time people gets confused. I think title also needs some changes. So project management process group it should be. So many times people get confused between saying process group as a phases. I think in the agenda also it was like that. Maybe, but that was a typo error. So in initiating process group, what happens is we'll have a high level clarity about the project, and assignment of a project manager would happen. So when it comes to planning process group, understanding the requirements clearly and then defining a project management plan is the one which is focused in planning process group. Whereas executing process group focus on ensuring execution is happening, the sufficient knowledge is managed, all that engagement which required to be done during the execution by project manager will be done. And one of the reasons many people have come across saying project manager only coordinates. So the reason project manager only coordinates, this particular conclusion people comes to, they're not seeing the project manager when it is in initiating process group or planning process group or in monitoring or closing process group. They only see the project managers moving around as part of the execution, because majority of the team members are there during the execution. So that makes them to feel that project manager only coordinates. Other four process groups, mostly, they may not have visibility. So challenge to the project manager will go accordingly. So execution is done by the team. So project manager has to look into that. Execution happens as per the plan. And then that effectively has to be managed through monitoring and control process group, the processes within this. Then once the project is complete, a formal sign-off is done in closing process group. So further, let us look at what exactly the typical activities happens in each of these process groups. So when we say initiating process group, so high-level scope statement will be made and the project charter is created. So for this, agreements, business cases, any of the analysis which is done in the business perspective before taking up the project, any of the basic information of the stakeholders will be captured in project charter. So along with the project charter, formal assignment of the project manager will happen. Assignment of the project manager will happen and declaration formally will happen. So this project charter will be handed over to the project manager. So identification of stakeholders, immediately project manager will move forward identifying the stakeholders of the project, which will help project manager to understand the requirements better. So initially the basic requirements are there in project charter, high level. And then the moment project manager connects with project stakeholders, so the collection of requirements starts from there. So stakeholder register is created here as part of this process group. And then once it is done, I think next process group will be planning process group, where planning happens in detail. So if you can see that it includes developing project management plan, scope management plan, collecting requirements, defining scope, creating work breakdown structure, planning schedule management, then defining activities, sequencing activities, estimating activity durations, developing schedule, planning cost management, estimating cost, determining budget, then plan quality management, resource management, planning, estimating activity resources, planning communication management, planning risk management, identification of risk, analyzing the risk qualitatively, quantitatively, then the planning for risk responses, implementation of that risk responses happens in execution, plan procurement management, planning stakeholder management. So comprehensive. Now, waterfall approach, if you speak about, everything is done in one go. If you speak about agile approach, obviously, as per the iterations, these are considered to that particular iterations, and then you will have the execution accordingly in the execution process group. So execution process group involves acquiring the team, acquiring the resources, developing them, configuring them, and execution of the project as per the plan defined. Any procurements requirements will be executed here. Identification of suppliers. After identification of the suppliers or partners, so further those suppliers or partners are engaged, and then their performance is monitored. Then procurement happens from them. Then tracking of whatever is being executed, assigning the task to the team, and then monitoring the team performance. I mean, checking, following up with them to get the things done. Then checking on the status, updating on the project schedules, and then modifying project plans as needed. So meaning project management perspective, project manager is not executing anything. So delegating and monitoring, and delegation should be effective. One cannot just delegate and sleep. It cannot happen. So there should be something, like some mechanism where these delegations are monitored and checked regularly so that execution happens as per the plan. So then when it comes to monitoring and control, so each of those areas what we discussed in planning, that integration we spoke about, scope, time, cost. Similarly, we spoke about resources, quality, stakeholders. So in all of these areas, how is it happening? We planned certain way, is it happening accordingly? That needs to be monitored. So this should be related to the project objectives, quality deliverables, effort tracking, cost tracking, project performance, procurement, the list goes on with all the 10 knowledge areas what we spoke about. So these particular 5 KPIs are very important. That's why it is mentioned here. Otherwise, the rest of the areas in terms of resource performance also. Being a people manager, project manager should do that. So monitoring and controlling, and then when deliverables happen in the execution, validation of the deliverable against what is planned. So validation of the scope to confirm, yes, it is delivered as per the plan should happen here. So any of the changes for the deviations, what is found in the execution against the plan. So there is the integrated change control which happens in monitoring and control process group. So change approval happens here, execution of change happens, and then again that is checked. So that is about monitoring and control process group. So coming to closing process group. So there are validation, as I mentioned, happens in monitoring and control. In closing process group, you don't validate anything. You don't check whether deliverables are happened as per the plan or not. All that you do is doing the activities for formally closing the project, capturing the lessons learned, formally declaring that project is complete, or a specific phase is complete, formally declaring that, obtaining the sign off formally, handing over any of the documentation or any of the resources to the respective teams or respective stakeholders. These completion of these formalities and then formally declaring project or phase is complete. That's what the focus for closing process group. So many people gets confused when the moment the closing of a project I mentioned, they just end up with validation. Validation doesn't happen in closing process group. It is defined in monitoring and control. So validate against what is being planned, whether we have delivered accordingly. So if that is confirmed, then it triggers closing process. That's about the process groups and actions, what happens in the process groups. Now, next we will move towards knowledge area. So as defined in PMBOK, there are 10 knowledge areas and 49 processes. Let us see how they are distributed along with the process groups. Now, if you look at this table, the one which is written here, initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and control and closing. These are process groups, whereas the one which is title of a column are knowledge areas. So we have 10 knowledge areas: project integration management, project scope management, project schedule management, cost management, quality management, resource management, communication management, risk management, procurement management, and stakeholder management. So when we say project integration management, this integrates rest of the 9 knowledge areas. This is where project manager's role is very, very important. Project manager is also called as an integrator. Now, this is the only knowledge area where you have a process in each process group. But if you look at other process groups, you don't have a process in closing process group. Similarly, initiating, you have only in stakeholder management. Now, if you look at this portion, scope, schedule, cost, you don't have any process because execution is done by team. Project manager doesn't do anything. Project manager focus here on acquiring resources, develop team, manage team, at the same time managing quality, managing communication, implementation of risk responses, ensuring this happens, conducting procurements, managing stakeholder engagement, and mainly direct and manage project work and manage project knowledge during execution, I'm saying. So if you look at these, in initiating process group, you have only 2 processes. One is developing project charter, handing over to the project manager, formally declaring the assignment of the project manager, and project starts from there. Then project manager's first job is identifying stakeholders. Then all of these knowledge areas where you create the plans, these are all called as a subsidiary plans. So all 9 subsidiary plans are consolidated in integration. So integrated project management plan you see here, which includes all of this, the plan which is made here. Accordingly, execution happens. Then validate scope, as I mentioned, you can see here. Only after this confirms everything is delivered as per the plan what is made, scope what is being defined, then it goes and triggers the process, close project or phase, depending on what is that point which you are working. Are you at the end of the project, or are you approaching the end of a specific phase accordingly? Otherwise, it's all about control scope, control schedule, control cost, control quality, control resources, monitor communication, monitor risk, control procurements, monitor stakeholder engagement. So that this is about the way you are doing things. Are they going as per the plan? If they're not going as per the plan, deviation. Now you may have some confusion here. What is the difference between validate scope and control scope? Validate scope is about deliverables. Control scope is about is everything is delivered as per the plan. It is supposed to be delivered on so and so date. So the triple constraint thought we did right. 1 week, 1 feet has to be completed. So is that 1 feet is completed in 1 week? So checking those validation of that. Sorry, checking that and see to that it is getting completed as per the plan. Validation is whatever is delivered, does it capture all the features functionality as per the scope? Is it delivered as per the scope? Checking, validating accordingly. If at all any deviations found in any of these control processes, we will perform integrated change control. A change request will be raised, that will be approved, and then project manager or respective individuals would take it. Then if everything is okay, obviously that will move towards closure, closing project or phase. This is how the framework is, and you need not worry how will I remember all of these 49 processes, because each of these processes are connected certain way, the flow happens certain way, which you can visualize that flow. I think when you come to the training, we elaborate on that in terms of how to ensure you recall all of these easily. So don't mug up, don't try to by heart and then try to recall it. It doesn't help. You will get more and more nervous if you do that when you go to the examination. So better I will leave that particular topic here. So whenever you come to the training, whenever you go for the training, so this is explained thoroughly so that you can able to grasp that flow and visualize it so that you can recall easily. So next is the project management and associated methodologies. To do project management, what are the typical various different methodologies are spoken today, approached today. So agile is something which is becoming more and more popular today. So when I say agile, the meaning of agile is about becoming flexible, moving faster. That's what it refers to. So various different methodologies for agile we have, like Scrum is one of the agile methodologies. So which speaks about 3 artifacts, 3 roles, and 5 events. Then waterfall approach. So it's a traditional approach where you go one by one in detail and complete. Rapid application development, which is also bring that agility into the place. New product integration, you may require to like transition you mentioned, right? New feature to the existing product. Installation of the new product in the existing environment. So all this requires a project management approach. Prince 2 is another best practice like PMP. So as we know, PMP is offered by PMI, Project Management Institute, whereas Prince 2 is from Axelos, where it has its base in UK, whereas PMI has its base in US. Prince 2 versus PMP, a lot of discussion happens. Nothing to worry on that. So both has its own framework, focusing on a specific objectives of the project, and both helps. And both has its own vocabulary list. So any organization having the base or connection with the customer, having the base in the UK, they would go for Prince 2. And PMP, similarly, US. Now, what will you do if no base in US or UK? You can go for either of the approaches. Both helps to accomplish the results. And PMP holds higher value compared to Prince 2 because of the way the evaluation happens in the examination. It has its own value because examination will have 200 questions, 4 hours. So that is a challenge for anyone to make themselves to sit for 4 hours concentrating on 200 questions. And this is what the capability a project manager should possess, the level of concentration, because a lot of discussion happens, a lot of deliverables happens. So conversation, when it happens, one should remember, respond to it, the behavior of the customers, the behavior of the team, suppliers, the big dynamics which happens around. Project manager should be able to handle it. Speak about Kanban. Kanban is not a project management approach, though it is a methodology which is used to polls. It's also called as poll system, which is a visual system to track the workflow so that things can be easily handled and get it delivered as per the plan. So Six Sigma, I think Six Sigma thought is come up early, but lean methodologies are taken into it. So looking at the customer value in the customer perspective, elimination of waste, DMAC is one of the approaches spoken in Six Sigma. Then outcome mapping. So we need to understand the difference, output versus outcome. When we say output, it's about the results, what comes out of a project, whereas outcome is something as a result of that particular output performance, you will have an outcome. So that helps in realization of the value. So mapping that outcome, understanding what is that outcome from this particular thing. For example, this webinar is happening. Output is what? Whatever I am speaking, you're listening. That's the output, what is happening. Outcome is your own learning, your own analysis, the way you look at it. Now, through that, you go and apply. Through this learning, you may go and apply somewhere, which result in certain way. So through that, you realize the value. Means maybe enhanced ability of an individual after the training to go and apply the best practice approach and then get the results better than what they were getting earlier. So that's about two methodologies. Now, speaking about tips and tricks to crack PMP examination. Now, what I want to mention first here is, before we speak about tips and tricks, we need to know about the examination first. Now, examination will be for 4 hours, having 200 questions. Now, challenge here is, you may know the answer, but you may end up in clicking on the wrong answer because you are tired sitting in front of the screen for so many hours. So how long a person can retain the concentration? Not so easy. So 200 question concentration, in the sense, I think initially you feel like it is easy, multiple choice questions, but as you spend half an hour, 40 minutes kind of thing, you will know the challenge. Your eyes starts burning, your body starts spinning, you're unable to concentrate. The moment this happens, even though you know the answers to the questions which are coming up, you may end up in clicking on the wrong answer. That should not happen. You should not end up in clicking on the wrong answer. So you should be selecting the right answer and you should demonstrate that what you know. So to accomplish it, it is quite obvious. You may require to follow the tips and tricks which is given to you. So prepare yourself on the subject. That is one thing. Don't stop there. Prepare yourself to concentrate for 200 questions and to sit. Means you need to exercise. If required, you may require to do some meditation or some exercise which will help you to concentrate on 200 questions. And you should practice. If you have a simulation platforms where real-time examination experience, find such dumps first and practice. And your body, mind should cooperate with you. Then you should follow this. So preparing better for PMP examination and how to select the correct answers and what should be your preparation before we go for examination. So to prepare for PMP examination, so all that you should do is take a PMP certification course first, be with it, then create a specific schedule for your study at your home and ensure that you concentrate on that study with the specific schedule. You should comply with it. Many people will have schedule, they don't comply with it. Then be in touch with the people who are already certified PMP. Maybe since you should become a member of PMI, keep visiting the local chapter to see what is happening about PMP in the community. So then analyzing on the wrong answers before identifying right answers, know how to check what is that particular answers which doesn't go with the given question. So how it happens is many a times we read the question and then when we go through the options, every answers look similar. Why? Because when we read the questions, we did not read that question with the context of the question. So until we understand the question correctly, don't look at the options. If you're still not getting, look at the options and again go and read the question. So that will give some insights. So that reading the question, going through the options, reading the question, going through the options, definitely will provide an insight, provided you have went through the material of PMP. Consider your PMP exam preparation as a project. Very, very important. So I always suggest minimum you keep 2 months time. At the moment I decided to take a PMP examination now it is October. So I would plan for December, 2 months, and work backwards and prepare with the schedule by complying to that schedule. Don't deviate. If you have some schedules defined, never ever deviate. Just be with that schedule and do it with full discipline. It helps. So next is about how to select correct answers. Now 200 questions. In the 200 questions, 175 questions are only considered for scoring. There will be some 25 questions which are pre-test questions. So you will not know which are those 25 questions which are for pre-test. So better attempt all the questions. Even though you feel like this is out of syllabus, please answer. You may be feeling out of the syllabus, but it may be inside the syllabus. So don't come to conclusion out of syllabus, you answer. But read the question and options thoroughly as I mentioned. So when confused about correct option, try to avoid the generalization depicted with the words such as always, never, completely. Search for certain keywords which is related to best practice. That will help you. Then still further confused, as I mentioned, look at the options and go back to the question relating to each of the options. So whichever best suits with that particular questions, you can select that. So when all the answers seems correct, so go through all options and try to understand the relativity with the situations expressed in the question, which is important. Generally, the option with the correct answer might have some grammatical mistakes. Just to misguide you, identify those. That's the reason you should read slowly, understand word by word, what meaning it provides. Only then you attempt or select the answer. Read the last line of the wordy and lengthy questions more carefully because all the information may not be necessary. What happens is there will be some story given and the question says according to PMBOK guidelines, which of the following options best suit for scope management? Now all that narrative given in the question, it speaks about the scope for sure. Now this question is speaking about, the last line is speaking about the scope management, and that should help that situation to be addressed. So predominantly in the options, you should look for the one which is linking to the scope management. So you may require to ignore all the information given in the question part of it. Last line, which is stressing on scope management, you may require to find the answer based on that. So many people will just get lost with the scenario and then find difficult to answer it. Try to break the question into multiple parts and also try to see whether that helps. And always think from PMBOK guide perspective. So PMBOK stands for Project Management Body of Knowledge given by PMI. So all the presentations which are made by any of the training institute like Edureka. So the source of information for making that presentations would be PMBOK only. The latest edition of PMBOK 6th edition, which was released at the end of 2018 and 2019, I guess March 2019 or so. I don't think so. I think 2018 onwards, this is there, 6th edition. You should refer to that. I think the moment you become a member of PMI, you can download that from the PMI's website itself. So now before the exam, have a nice sleep. Don't tire yourself because when you go to examination center, you may require to concentrate. And remember now, because of the COVID scenario, you need not go anywhere to take up the examination. Examination you can take sitting at your home, which is a web prompted. So someone sitting from PMI will monitor you through the webcam of yours. You should be sitting in the closed room and your test should be clean and you should show using the webcam the entire room, and then to take the examination, and you should not move here and there during the examination. There should not be any disturbance. Nobody should walk in. Please ensure you inform to the people at home that they should not come in during the examination so that you will not have a disturbance. At the same time, if the moment someone moves around, your examination gets disqualified. Please be careful about it. And if it is examination center, go as per the timeline because you will lose out on your money what you paid if you don't go. So prepare everything you need one day before so that morning you will not have any confusions. And your diet perspective, have a lighter one which helps you to concentrate. Create your own brain dumps. So give that visualization, mind mapping, you do it, and then be ready. So, but as I told you, Sitting for 4 hours concentrating on 200 questions is not an easy job. Even though you know the answer, you will maybe end up in selecting the wrong answer. So please be careful about it. Because you're tired while clicking on the answers, you may go and click on the wrong answer. So please be careful about it. So you should ensure you focus on each question one by one. Don't jump. Don't jump into the next one before answering this correctly. Timer will be running in descending order. It may panic you, but if you practice sitting for 4 hours, concentrating on 200 questions in your mock itself, it will become easy in your actual exam. Okay, that's all about tips and tricks. Now, very importantly, for your practice, various different skills are required being a project manager. So what would be the skill which one would concentrate on to become a better project manager? So communication, leadership, team management, negotiation, personal organization, risk management. Now, when we say communication, so communication, 90% of the times project manager communicates with all the stakeholders regularly, because that is very important. The transaction of information, the updation on the project details, all these are very important. So active presence of project manager is very important. Thus communication plays a very important role. That is the reason we have one dedicated knowledge area called communication management. Project communication management is one of the knowledge areas. Then leadership. So many a time people get confused between the term leadership and management. So leadership is a capability, leadership is a skill, leadership is a personality trait where every manager should have. Those are not different. The moment I become a manager, I should have these leadership capabilities. Otherwise, I cannot become successful in the management role. So being a project manager, since I need to deal with a lot of people, a lot of conflicts, a lot of challenges, if I don't have leadership capability, I cannot become successful. Next is team management. When we say team, it's quite obviously they are the one who are executing. They are the one who is building things for you in this project, producing the result as required. So it is required to ensure right team is selected, they are grouped to the project, fulfill the project requirements in such a way that they understand the project requirements and they deliver accordingly. Team plays very important role, so you should know how to handle them. The negotiation. So we say negotiation in good faith. So it's always win-win. Not I negotiate for my advantage only, I should not do that. So there should be fairness. I should understand what value. For example, if you are procuring something, you are negotiating the price. Now, if someone is telling the price which is beyond what is the market price, you negotiate, but your facts should be right. If you have right facts in place, you keep those, meaning you should do your groundwork before you go and sit negotiate. You should be well informed before that. Then personal organization, in the sense organizing self and ensuring everything what we are doing and what I am doing in specific is actually contributing to the project as well as to the organization, and values are created accordingly. All those I am doing, I'm organized, structured in such a way that I can able to handle it better. So when we say professional code of conduct as an individual, 4 core values we speak about. That is about responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. So me being a project manager, I should demonstrate all of these core values. I should share. I should respect the individuals. I should groom myself better. I should contribute to the project proactively and build that abilities and motivate that in the team as well. And have a good respect and good relationship with consumers, customers, relationship with suppliers, team members. Very essential. Risk management, I think risk management is something which is ignored a lot in many projects, what I have seen. Initially, there will be list of risks created, but nobody will touch that afterwards. Risk management is not a one-time job. It is a regular thing which one has to do throughout the project lifecycle. So that's about basic skills, what I'm speaking about. There's something called talent triangle, which PMI speaks about, which indicates strategic and business requirements, where every project invested by organization to accomplish that. So one has to keep that in mind. And secondly, technical project management. So project manager should be aware of the technology, technicalities of the project, what is being handled, if not hands-on, at least about the technology background, so that right questions are asked, right evaluations are made for the project. And next is leadership skills. So the talent triangle we speak about. So PMI's talent triangle, you can check in PMI website as well. So we speak about it during our training a lot. So we should be keeping that in mind while having while we are a project manager, so that our entire ability revolves around it. That's it. Thank you so much.